Hi, here's Bob Hatton from Germany. It's good that you tuned in today. I'm very pleased to see you. God bless you. Have a good day. Today we're talking about Acts of the Apostles, chapter 5, and our reading would be from verse 1 to verse 11. It's quite a difficult passage, but it's in the Bible, so let's have a look at it. Now, we've just seen some pictures of some trees that have fallen over. Big trees, big strong trees that were at one time going right up into the sky. But then just a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, we had a storm and these trees have fallen over. And we ask ourselves, why is that? Well, as we look at these trees, look at the one end of them, the end that wasn't visible before, the end that was in the ground, we find out that these trees have no root, or that the roots are very small, that the roots are not holding the trees into the ground. Now, a forester once told me that these trees don't really belong in our area, the area of Germany where we live, because the soil is too rich, and these trees just they let the roots stay on the surface instead of going deep down. The soil is just too rich for them. But when the storm comes, and even though these trees are probably 10, 20, 30 years old, when the storm does come, they fall over. Now, in the last book before the second last book in the Bible is a book of Jude, a letter that a man called Jude wrote. Jude was a brother of Jesus. And he talks about people who are like clouds without any water, or trees without any roots. And we're actually speaking about such people today. We've seen that the church has been established, and it started off with these 120 people, and it grew in one day to 3,120 people. A little bit later we heard that there were 5,000 men, and we count the women on top of that and children on top of that, and we come to quite a big number. And this church continues to grow all the time. And of course, every new person who comes is kind of a new problem, a new challenge, because a lot of needy people came into the church. And then we see that the richer people in the church, they were selling stuff that they didn't need, and they were bringing the proceeds of their sales into the church and giving it to the leaders of the church. And among these people was a man called Barnabas, who we looked at, the son of encouragement. He had a field, he sold the field, and he gave the proceeds to the leaders of the church. And it seems like chapter 5, it just continues. There's a couple called Ananias and Sapphira, and they also have something that they sell, but they say to one another, we're going to tell the church that is everything that we got. But we're not actually giving everything, we're just giving a little piece, but we'll tell them that it's everything. Now, nowhere are we ever told, or nowhere is it expected that we give everything into the church or into a church. What is expected of us is that we are generous, but never are we expected to give everything. The problem was they said they were giving everything and they were only giving a portion. Even this portion might have been very, very generous, but they were lying. They were not honest. And so what happens, to make the story short, you can read it, but the wrath of God is revealed. First of all, the husband drops down dead, and they carry his body out, and then a little bit later the wife comes and she confirms the story, what her husband told them, and the wrath of God, it kills her as well. She falls down dead. It's a very dramatic story, and I know it's a very, very difficult to explain, except that God hates this dishonesty that we might also have in our hearts. Jesus, he talks about people being hypocrites. He calls a religious group in the New Testament, he calls them hypocrites, because they're saying something, but they're doing something completely different. Now, a hypocrite in those days, he was actually an actor. We see the actors in the theatre maybe, or on TV in the cinema, and there's people who play a role who they're not they aren't actually these people. Sometimes they have to learn how to the accents. Sometimes they learn the movements, how the people would have walked and given themselves. They have the costumes depending on what kind of a play or a film it is. And they take on a role of someone who they aren't. In the days of Jesus, they didn't have the costumes and everything, but they would put masks in front of their faces and they would play somebody that they aren't. And okay, in the theatre that's okay, in the cinema that's okay, but in real life, that's abomination before God. And he is very, very strict with this. And Jesus has some very strong words about religious people preaching one thing and doing other things, laying burdens on people's shoulders, but not fulfilling them themselves. Jesus says it's like if a man builds a house and he's got to dig down till he gets to the rock and build his house on the rock, because when the storm comes and our houses are not built on the rock, they don't stay. The house on the rock has good foundations and it can withstand the storm, but the house on the sand cannot, and it is swept away. Ananias and Sapphira, they were swept away as God's judgment came. When I read this story, I've got to ask myself, am I one of these clouds without any rain in them? Am I one of these trees without any roots? And I think the challenge for today is for me to put down my roots very deeply in the ground. And I do that by being sincere in my faith, when I read God's word, when I hear God's word, and when I, as a teacher, a preacher, when I preach God's word, that I do that for what I teach other people, I'm also doing myself, and not laying a burden upon them. And by doing that, my roots are going deeper, and if the storm comes, I can withstand it. Well, I hope you're challenged, and I hope you'll be blessed today. Have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow. You're Bob Hatton from Germany.